Thank you very much for signing in tonight. It looks like we've got very good attendance. We already have 39 people signed up, and here it is right at 7 o'clock. So thank you for joining us, up to 40. My name's Nancy Burns, and I'm the vice president of the board, and I will be for about another 2 hours when my term is up. I was probably the longest serving board member as well, and it's been a wonderful ride. I got to deal with wonderful board members and staff people, and over many, many years, even before being with the board, I got to work with, say, Nick doing slides and with other staff members doing videos. So we have a lot to be thankful for. I'd like to start by recognizing that this is probably the most unprecedented situation most of us have ever been through. For starters, it's April 16, and we woke up to snow. And the good thing is our taxes weren't due yesterday. That got pushed out. That's unprecedented. More important, though, this is the first annual meeting that I know of that has been moved up 2 months at the request of our members, and for good reasons. This is also the first annual meeting that we've done in this format. It probably feels uncomfortable for a lot of us, me included, but thank you for staying with us. It's the best way we know of to get consistent information, timely, right then to everybody who's tuned in. So we appreciate that. Of course, the big overriding concern that all of us have is this global pandemic that's really influencing everybody's life at pretty much every level. So my day job is with the Medical Reserve Corps, and it's been all COVID all the time, responding round the clock, because we're finding that people in Westford really want to help Westford. So we can be proud of our community. We can be proud of the way we're responding. And above all else, I hope all of you are doing as best as you possibly can in this unprecedented day and this time and this situation. I'd like to start by giving a call to order, saying thank you for coming here and making a few welcoming remarks. And just briefly reviewing the agenda.
Nancy, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we do have one question out there. It looks like Cindy Edwards maybe is saying her audio is having a problem. I just want to make sure that's not a general problem people are having.
Thank you.
It's working now. Thank you, Cindy, for updating that. Okay, back to you, Nancy. Thanks.
Hopefully it's just one PC or one laptop or one device. Like you said, we're all getting used to this format here. At any rate, here's the way the agenda is going to be working. Are we able to show the agenda now? If not, I'll just repeat. Oh, well, it's probably somewhere, right?
It's coming up.
Coming up? Okay. I feel like Dr. Burks, she had to get on with her presentation before it showed up. So here's the agenda tonight. First of all, the call to order and my opening remarks. Thank you for being here. We're going to talk a little bit about the meeting logistics. Tom, did you want to say a few words about how the meeting is going to proceed?
Nancy, why don't I take that after your opening remarks? We'll just talk through what people can expect for the evening.
Okie doke. We'll have an operations update by Sarah. We're going to give an update on the board. There are 6 open seats and 3 appointed seats. We're going to take nominations from the floor. Then we'll introduce the people who have applied for board positions, and they'll each get 2 minutes to speak, including the nominations from the floor. People who have already applied and allowed us to review their materials, they have been invited, if they wish, to give a slide and talk about why they're interested in being in the board. We'll also look at the number of directors that we'll allow, because it could be that we'd like to vote in 8 positions instead of 6. We'll have a motion on that. We'll second it. We'll have a discussion, and we'll call for a vote on the number of directors allowed, whether it's 6 or 8 or however many. And then we'll vote on the board members. By law, half of them have to be 2-year positions, half of them have to be 1-year positions. The candidates, we'll thank them for being here. We'll see if there's any other business, and then we'll adjourn, hopefully by 9 o'clock. Does that sound reasonable? I don't know if you can vote on that just yet, but we'll proceed. Hello? Hey, Sarah.
Oh, hello.
Hello. Okay. Sarah, are you able to display the list of staff members? Because that's the first thing I want to do is thank those people individually for all the work that they've been doing over the years.
You have that on one of your slides.
I do. Okay.
I think Bob is helping us with that, Nancy. So yep. Bob will put that up.
Okie doke. Thanks.
We'll take a minute to thank the excellent Westford IT staff for their help with this meeting today. It's new for Westford. It's new for any organization I've been part of to have a membership voting meeting like this. So they've done a lot of work, and we are very appreciative.
And the fact that 42 of you have tuned in tonight is really wonderful, and we thank you. So above and all else, These are unprecedented times. WestfordCAT has never been more crucial. Getting the news out, keeping us informed, giving us important information about the impact in the community and measures being taken to take care of ourselves and each other. Hugely important now more than ever. So I'd like to thank Joyce Crane, our news director. I'd like to thank Steve Edwards, the technical coordinator, Sarah Fletcher, our marketing outreach manager, Patty Stocker, wonderful production coordinator, and Nick Woodbury, production technician. All of them working together. What amazes me is throughout this last several months, they haven't missed a beat, despite any of the upheavals that have happened through WestfordCAT, through the COVID-19 emergencies. They've just kept working closely with each other, perhaps collaborating even more closely than ever. Every Monday they have their meeting, they talk about their projects, and it's clear that they're very much in sync, working hard to do the right thing. So thank you so much for the staff, the current staff, and the fact that this is a fresh start and we get to go ahead. The next thing I'd like to, we have another slide, I believe, that's going to show people in the task force. If we can get that slide, great. If we can't, we'll just mention that Tom has been guiding that as well.
I think Bob's going to pull it up. My money's on Bob.
Thank you very much, Bob. And again, Mike Wells, IT, and Bob being a supportive person as well with IT. Thank you so much for making this possible. So the task force members, you probably are aware, there's a lot to be gained from focusing on the way WestfordCAT is moving into the future. This group is figuring out ways to raise more funds, but even bigger than that, looking at how we're operating is their way to do it better. Actually researching some of the other cable access companies. Are some of the stations handling things in a different way? Is there a business model that's working more effectively? Are they being as sustainable as they possibly can? Are we sharing a lot of the same issues? What can we learn from each other? So the task force right now is absolutely crucial. And you may notice there's a lot of overlap between people in the task force and people that are on the board. And we have staff members involved as well. So it's a nice mix of people from different interests. The fact that these people can focus on those issues as a task force is really crucial. So thank you again for that, folks. I don't know if I had asked for an additional slide or if we should simply move on.
You have one more slide about the board, if that's in agenda position.
That would be great. Okay. And I might thank Sarah having the patience of a saint is keeping us on track, making sure we meet all of our objectives. So the board that we have had so far for the last year and a half, and some of them much longer, Warren Adam was representing the Neshoba Tech. That position is open. That's one of the 3 appointed positions. Betsy Alvarez, who is also a news producer, was doing a wonderful job. Dan Bush, who was our president. And I need to say something on his behalf, by the way. Something that most of you don't know is that he and I had worked together on a church committee back in 2006, dealing with a situation that was difficult. And he showed he's the kind of guy that won't cut and run. We had also, Sarah had worked with him when she wanted to be in the Rotary. So, Lauren Horton had asked him to stand up for her to be in the Rotary. So when Ira left, Dan was the only person who stood up to the plate and said, yes, I'm willing to take over as president, knowing that we had some financial concerns and other issues to deal with. And I think we should thank him for stepping up to the plate, knowing how hard it was going to be. I'd like to thank Tracy Tebrow, because she was on the board right before I was as the clerk and did a fabulous job all along. And people were wondering, could she still stay on? Both Tracy and I are quite eager to help with the transition of people moving into the new board, moving into a new exciting future. Some of the terms are simply ending as of this meeting. Avery Adam, myself, Christina Sacco, who's done a wonderful job as well for finance and crunching numbers. Shunhee Xiong also has been great in terms of helping keep things going. We'd like to thank our school committee liaison, Sean Kelly, for being with us, and also the Board of Selectmen, Tom Clay, who has just been instrumental in keeping things going, especially over the last few months, and making this meeting happen tonight. So that's the outgoing board, and we're going to be starting with a clean slate. And again, I hope you see this as a fresh new future. So that's it for my opening remarks, and I'd like to turn over to Sarah to talk about the state of WestfordCAT.
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you for all your kind comments. You know, the last few months have been challenging for the staff, but I have to say that we have all been working really well together as a team. Everyone has, everybody has their own area of expertise, and we've just pulled together really nicely to accomplish a lot over the last few months, and especially since this quarantine period. So, while I can't deny the devastating impact of COVID-19, I have to really marvel at what we've been able to accomplish as employees of WestfordCAT. And I'm so proud of everybody that I work with and what we've been able to do. Like, we're all working remotely from televised meetings, the news and interviews. We're keeping the community really connected with our information. Our remote workflows were enabled. Steve got us all hooked up with a minimal cost and mostly using features of the equipment we already had on hand. We've had 45 new members since the beginning of the year, which is pretty amazing. Welcome to many of you new members that are listening tonight. We've had Joyce has been busy with the news, as has Patty. We've got 80 posts that have been shared since March 13th, especially with all this breaking news about COVID. 38 videos have been produced and are available for viewing. That's amazing, given that all of that work is being done remotely. We're supporting the town committee meetings. We're simultaneously and remotely recording, televising, and live streaming to WestfordCAT and to our YouTube channel. Thanks to Steve, he got that hooked up. We have been, we're poised for help with the town elections. Joyce is going to be doing a voter's guide. Patty is going to be recording candidates' minutes. And Steve and the League of Women Voters are going to be doing a remote candidates night. Nick has been working with Cameron Senior Center to get their exercise programs televised for the seniors who like to enjoy those programs. And he continues to handle channel programming and covers the office as well. Steve is doing a lot of tech support and, of course, remote meeting coverage. And I'm covering the office, and I've been trying to keep up with some of the new programs that are out there, like the SBA's payroll protection program. I've been working with the bookkeeper and looking for grants and just staying on top of things that just needed to get keep an eye on without an executive director on hand. Just to keep an eye on those things. So, we're hosting our first online virtual meeting, and that is amazing. And I think we've had more attendance at this meeting, despite the fact that when I have them in person, I serve food and beverages. So, I hope this doesn't become a regular thing because I miss everybody.
Yeah.
But I also just want to give a shout out to Lauren. I know Lauren's listening in, Ira's listening in, and I just wanted to say hi to them and to let them know they're in our thoughts today. And thank you to you, Nancy, and Tom and Sean for hanging in there to the bitter end here and getting us through to the annual meeting, and for all the stress that's been going on. We really appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
And may I give Sarah a shout out, because she's not only had the patience of a saint, like I mentioned, she's had to adapt to more things in the last 6 months than anybody I've ever seen, in terms of her job itself being a lot more requiring fundraising and getting memberships and greater degrees of things that she really hadn't counted on. And she's just, stepped up to the plate and done what she had to do. And we appreciate that, Sarah.
Thank you, Nancy.
Ira, it's good that you're tuned in as well. Some of you may know that Ira Keltz was our board president for years and years, and he did an awesome job, and he was fun, and the meetings were on time and very productive. He was involved in Westford Music Rocks, and he did the news, and just pretty much everywhere. And we miss you, Ira. We miss you, Ira. Hope you're doing well. And Lauren, of course, I know that you'd like to close the loop better than in a meeting like this, but certainly you gave us 10 of the best years. And I love it that you said it was never about the money for you, Lauren. You always had the passion for making it grow and change. Some of you may not know that Lauren started out 10 years ago at Neshoba Tech with a small operation. She grew it to what it is. It moved to its nice facility on Route 40. She also worked with people to expand the size of it, because people even then were on top of each other, building capabilities, adding things like the virtual reality and the smart board, and people could have meetings in there, and a lot of things that are being looked at even now, like having a sound room. So thanks to Lauren's dedicated 10 years and skills and talents, it's flourished, and it's been better than we could imagine, and it's such a valuable resource. So I'm going to stop talking right now and instead go to the review of our candidates. Are we able to post the list right now?
And actually, Nancy, do you mind if we go back to the agenda for a sec? I just want people to understand the decisions they'll be making and kind of the order of the evening.
Thank you.
We could get the agenda back up, and thanking Nancy who served as staff liaison during a difficult 6-month time, and kept things going and kept the communication up between Westford staff and the world. So just procedurally, I just want to give people an outline of what to expect from here. So as Nancy has mentioned, we're going to review the nominated board members, the board members that are already the candidates for elected board positions that have already been nominated. We're very fortunate to have 8 of them, very, very talented group. We're very lucky to have them. So we'll review them quickly. We're just going to show what their names are. We will then open the floor to nominations from the floor. So if there are additional people here tonight that would like to nominate themselves or like to nominate someone else, we'll have that opportunity. Once that's done, we'll know who all the candidates are, whether it's 8 or whether it's additional people. We'll have all those people in our minds. Then Nancy will invite each of them to give a 2-minute overview. For many of them, we have a slide that gives a little bit of background information that you'll see while they're speaking. So we'll walk through all those folks, all the people who have already presented themselves for nomination and anyone that is nominated from the floor. After that, we'll have a decision to make together about, after you've met everybody and seen all the talent, whether we want to keep the elected board positions at 6, as they currently are, or the bylaws allow us in this meeting to go either down to 5 or up to 8. So we'll have a little discussion at that point about whether we want to keep the elected board positions the same size. Once we know who all the board members are, the candidates are, and we know exactly how many positions we're looking to fill, we'll then move into the voting. And we'll stop and we'll talk about how the voting procedure will work in a fair amount of detail before then. So don't worry, we'll dig into exactly what the mechanics of the voting are like and how we're going to do that. Mike will take us through it. He's thought about it carefully. Nancy mentioned something at the beginning, which is by bylaw, we have a split board rotation. They're 2-year terms. And so what's available tonight for election are actually half the number of elected board positions you choose will be 2-year terms, and half will be remainder 1-year terms to fill out an open position of a 2-year term. So we'll be back on that rotating schedule of having half the board be up for election or new people each year. We'll cover that in more detail when we get there too, so don't worry about that. And let me stop and ask Mike if there's any procedural or meeting logistics things we should cover. I know that we're encouraging people to use the questions section if they have a question during the meeting. And so, Mike, let me ask you to pitch in here if there's other things people should be thinking about as we walk through the rest of the meeting.
Yeah, so I guess a couple of things. Firstly, to draw your attention to the control panel on the right-hand side of your screen. It can be in 2 sort of setups. It can be a condensed format or an expanded. There's a little orange and white arrow, and if you click that arrow, it'll either expand it or crush it down again. Directly underneath the orange and white arrow is the icon to mute yourself. Now, all the attendees right now are going to be or are muted. So you would just leave that alone, and when we're ready to call on you from the floor, I will unmute you from the control panel here. You don't need to do anything to do that. And if you do mute yourself, I can't then unmute you. You're going to have to do that yourself, but we'll try and let you know if that happens. 2 other things to look for and make sure you've located is there is a button you can click on, an icon that allows you to raise your hand if you want to get our attention for some reason. For example, when we're calling for nominations from the floor. It's a little bit non-intuitive in that it sort of shows the opposite of what you think it is. When your hand is not up, it shows you an icon with a hand up, meaning you can click this to raise your hand. And when your hand is up, it shows you an icon with the hand going down, meaning you can click this to put your hand back down again. But if you hover over it, it will tell you what your current status is. And the final thing is just to watch for the questions box. There's a place where you can click to ask a question. So when we come to a Q&A sort of section of the agenda, that is what we'd like you to use. Put those questions in writing to us so that we can try and identify the ones that are most permanent. If there are duplicate questions coming from duplicate people, from multiple people, we can answer them in one go, and that should speed things up as well. Other than that, just to point out that when we do the voting, the votes are counted but displayed as percentages. So in the sort of procedural votes where we have things like, here's a motion, are you in favor or against the motion? You'll see there's also an abstain option. It helps us if you choose abstain rather than just abstaining, because then we get a much truer reading of who actually voted for it or against it. So I encourage you to use the abstain option if that's what you intend to do. Other than that, the votes are all, pick the votes for the procedures, and we'll pick one option. You can choose in favor or against or abstain. You can't pick more than one. But when we come to the vote for the candidates, you will be able to pick more than one of the four that are on the screen. We've had to divide it into two lots because there's a limit on the number of things we can display on the screen. So there will be 2 rounds of votes for different people. The candidates have been randomly organized thanks to Excel's randomized function. And I think that pretty much wraps it up.
Thanks, Mike. That's terrific. And just as a reminder, before we actually vote, we'll go through in brutal detail exactly how the voting works and what you see, and you'll have a chance to ask questions. So if it's not immediately obvious to you exactly how that's going to work, thank you so much to the group that joined us last night for the rehearsal. Because of you, I think this is going to be much more straightforward and much more clear. If we could now bring the list of already nominated candidates for elected board positions up, I'll hand it back to Nancy. Just to introduce you to the folks that have already not been nominated, and then we'll open the floor for nominations from the floor.
So we have 8 people that are applying to be board members: Christy Bates, Marilyn Kattler, Robert Jeffries, Dapo Olugbabu, Dana Owens, Susan McNeil-Spooler, Jack Wang, and Diane Wood. Is there anybody from the floor who would like to offer themselves a candidate as well?
And Mike, please help us as we.
So there are a couple of people with hands up, but already up before we asked that question. Do you want to deal with those? Take those
Sure.
people now.
Sure.
So Susan has had her hand up for a while. Let me unmute Susan.
Okay.
Go ahead, Susan.
Well, I was going to ask if we were going to pledge allegiance, because we talked about that last night. Salute the flag.
Yeah, so Susan, we did look into that today. We checked into the history of WestfordCAT and also other nonprofit type organizations. And it has not been part of the past of those organizations or of WestfordCAT as far as we could tell. And we thought we'd keep the focus tonight on the business at hand of new board members. We encourage the new elected board, if they'd like to change the policy and have that become part of what happens at meetings, to do so, but decided tonight based on the precedents that we saw to go ahead with the agenda that we've already shown you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, there was one from Ray. Hold on a second. Ray, can you hear us?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point going in. While everybody certainly has a right to make nominations from the floor, I just wanted to personally make the point that I appreciate the candidates who submitted their applications in advance with their profiles, which gives the members ample time to become familiar with their backgrounds and to vet them over a period of time. That's just my personal statement. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ray. I appreciate that. And if you, obviously your full 100% focus will be on this meeting right now, but you could also open on another screen if you haven't yet. You could take a quick look at the WestfordCAT website. You can look and see there's a lot more information than you'll see here tonight. And I thank you, Ray. We do really appreciate the people who've been nominated already for putting in the time to provide all that information in advance. So now we're looking for nominations from the floor, and I don't know, Mike, if you can see anything I'm not
So
sure.
Barry
fine.
Rosenberg has his hand up. Barry.
Hi. I would like to, besides seconding what Ray said, point out, with the notable exception of Nancy Burns, who I was told what came up from the floor at a meeting to serve for so long. I think people who make the deadline and think about in advance show maybe a different level of commitment than those who decide to come off the floor. Just my
That's
opinion.
Yeah, Ray, that's definitely a good opinion. People have thought long and hard about this. They've been asked to stand up. I know that there's probably someone else, Nina, who also came from the floor. It doesn't mean a lack of preparation. It may be they've continued to think about it, and that evening they've decided, I'm motivated enough. I really want to put my hat in the ring as well. I don't think it means that they're bad if they wait, but I think it does show that these people that are listed, that have applied and put their names out there and let us review their materials, they are showing a very strong commitment.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Barry,
Okay. We're going to leave a little bit.
If I can we just unmute Susan? Susan, you still have your hand up. Was that intentional? No, good. Okay, it's gone away. So we're all set.
Okay, so my experience in these kinds of meetings, which is limited but growing every day, is let's just leave a little bit of white space here. Just going to leave 10 or 15 seconds to make sure that anyone who wishes to nominate from the floor has a chance to do that.
You know, while we have a minute, if I'm still live here, this is Sarah. I just want to acknowledge how many members have really come forward on so many levels to support WestfordCAT. They've really shown, you know, just how important we are to the community, and they've given us a tremendous amount of support, and I really just appreciate them so much. And I know the whole staff really has been, you know, feeling completely supported by our membership, and they've been terrific. So thank you all, for those of you that are on the call tonight, but also anyone watching from home. There's a lot of interest in WestfordCAT, and you know, we're feeling the love out here. So thank you so much.
Good. Well, you deserve it, Sarah and the crew. I'm going to, with your agreement, Nancy, as chair, I think we can close the floor to nominations if you feel comfortable doing that, Nancy.
Yes, I think we've given people enough time. We appreciate the input we've gotten. So if you wish, why don't we allow each person to take 2 minutes? And Tom said he'd be the timekeeper. So I'd like to invite Christy Bates, 2 minutes to describe why she'd be interested in being with the board. Christy?
And each one has a slide. Several of them have slides, not everybody. And I apologize. I had to redo the slides for everybody, so I apologize if there are any typos. It's my fault. And not everybody got, like Dana didn't get the email until much later, so he wasn't able to get it done. So I apologize for it was sort of a last minute put together after the call, after our rehearsal last night. So my apologies for the short notice.
And we're not going to be tremendously strict. At 2 minutes, I'll give you a friendly wave. And if you could just complete your thought, that would be great. And also, I know, Sarah, you did get some questions from audience members and people who are planning to attend. I think you provided those questions to the speakers, to the candidates.
I did. I sent them out to the candidates.
So you'll hear from them some combination of a personal statement and then a response to one or several of the questions that have come from you. So thanks, Christy. Are you unmuted? We'll give Christy a chance here to untangle this. Mike, can you see Christy?
Oh, hello.
Hey, Christy.
Hi. Sorry about that. Had to
No
unmute. I just have a question first to clarify. So I'm supposed to give my 2 minutes and then answer one or all of the questions? Just clarification on that, Tom.
We're a little bit freeform here. So if you've prepared for 2 minutes and that's what you've timed to, please go ahead and do that. And then if there are things that have not been covered in your comments in the questions, feel free to go ahead and answer one of those questions.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much. My name is Christy Bates. I thank you to Mike Wells, Nancy Burns, Tom Clay, the WestfordCAT staff, and the CAT members for providing this opportunity to have an annual meeting and board election remotely. I know it was not an easy feat to organize, and I appreciate it. I've lived in Westford for 22 years. Over the past several years, I've come to appreciate the various services that the CAT provides. I've watched many a town meeting, both live and archived. I enjoy the WestfordCAT news, videos, news updates, and other shows available to all. I also had the pleasure of touring the CAT studios with my daughter's Brownie Troop several years ago, which was a pleasure. It wasn't until this past January that I became involved in the current activities at the CAT. I was troubled by the decision to terminate the professional news division. While the decision was most likely not an easy one for the board and made with the fiscal health of the organization in mind, the decision was made without consent of the voting members. Over the past couple months, I've researched the role of members in a nonprofit. Members of a nonprofit corporation like WestfordCAT have rights similar to the shareholders of a public corporation. These rights are found not only in the Articles of Incorporation and bylaws, but in the Massachusetts general laws. A decision as important as cutting the news division should have been put to a vote to the members and not decided by the board alone. And one of the several reasons that I'm running for the board is to help define and communicate those members' rights. Another reason is to establish realistic goals for continuing and augmenting a professional news division. With our local sources of news disappearing, this is the time to expand local news for Westford. I would also like to see collaboration with nearby CAT stations about ways to expand the news and ways to address the fiscal concerns that face CAT stations in Massachusetts and the nation. Fiscal concerns are a reality, and another reason why I'm running for the board, I believe that fundraising has to be a bigger component of the WestfordCAT's revenue. I've been involved in fundraising for various nonprofit organizations like Westford Education Foundation, Westford Elementary PTO, and the Littleton Children's Fund. While treasurer of the Littleton Children's Fund, I was also a general coordinator of the playground build and helped to raise $300,000 through private, town, and state funding to rebuild the Castle in the Trees playground in Littleton in 2016. Over 800 volunteers were organized over a one-week period to rebuild the custom playground. It was both a humbling and educational experience. I hope to bring the many skills acquired on this project and others to the board. Thank you.
Thanks, Christy. And if you feel like any of that statement hasn't, feel like one of the questions that you saw wasn't covered in the statement, then feel free.
I guess I will answer. In order to build a diverse and collaborative board, what attributes do you bring to the table? I bring a diverse background of experience. I've worked in various management positions in the financial services industry, was the owner of a small business, volunteered with the AARP Tax Assistance Program. Currently, I'm the primary caretaker for my 2 children and the most difficult and rewarding of all my jobs. I volunteer in their schools, volunteer for multiple nonprofit organizations, and am active in Westford town government. In all of my various positions, I've learned that collaboration is not the most successful approach, but the most rewarding.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank
That's
you.
true.
All right, should we move on to the next person? That would be Marilyn Kettler. You there, Marilyn?
Hi, my name is Marilyn Kettler, and I've lived in Westford for 22 years also. WestfordCAT has been important to me since I've moved to Westford. The filming of the League for Women's Voters meetings has helped me make better choices voting. The filming of the news has helped me learn what is really going on in my community, most recently with COVID-19. And the filming of other unique shows has given me information and some laughs. My background: I have an MBA from BU with an emphasis in public management. And last March, I retired from Mass Housing after over 30 years. Although my main skills are research and programming, during that time, I took on many roles, including liaison positions between IT and the business units, and the development of a help desk. My last and final role for 19 plus years was working on the executive information systems, now called business intelligence. All of these positions required team effort. What can I offer the board? When you work in a company for 30 years, you obtain several skills, including versatility, how to change with times, and how to be prepared for changes that are beyond your control. State agencies often have new regulations and rules that need to be considered quickly. Organization, flexibility, foresight, and creativity are skills I needed to use throughout my time at Mass Housing and will use again if elected to the WestfordCAT board. How I view the board and its responsibilities. The board is here to assist the staff in WestfordCAT in the successful completion of its mission. The board should always be aware of the political and commercial changes that are in the pipeline and plan on how to move ahead depending on the outcomes of these changes. This may require fundraising, some political lobbying, grant writing, and other activities. COVID-19 brings with it many issues, but as the economy starts up, we need to be looking for opportunities that may exist with the new political and commercial reality that will be. I look forward to working with future board members, members and staff of WestfordCAT, and the greater Westford community to help bring WestfordCAT into the new world that is and will be because of COVID-19.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Marilyn, would you like the same opportunity? Is there a question from the membership that you'd like to address?
Yeah, I sort of put that in there, the one I was answering,
Okay.
which was, yeah.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Our next candidate then is Robert Jeffries. Robert?
Yeah, hi, this is Bob Jeffries. Up until April 1st, I was co-owner and member of the board and treasurer of a small business meeting a payroll every 2 weeks. So I understand the funding issues you've got. I also was involved in the original PEG grant negotiations. At first, when Comcast was the only cable provider, they said that they could use our right-of-ways without any fees whatsoever because they were a natural monopoly. That ended when FiOS came in. We negotiated the PEG grants, but at the time, they were not providing internet services. I strongly feel that up until a year ago, I was paying $8.70 a month in the PEG grant fee. Since then, I've gone off of cable TV and I no longer pay any fee, but I still have access to WestfordCAT. I attended the town meeting when I was in Oregon last year through internet access. And it seems to me that we have to look strongly at the internet portion of both of these companies as funders of WestfordCAT. I'm presently a member of the Community Preservation Committee, and I think that WestfordCAT, and we cover a lot of things and we fund a lot of things for the community preservation, but WestfordCAT really is essential to this community because we are losing too many sources of news and too much coverage of what goes on locally. And I think as we now are beginning to realize the future may hold an awful lot more that's done exactly this way and through the internet. And therefore, I would really look to renegotiate with both FiOS and Comcast on getting funding out of their internet services. If that doesn't work, I would look to have the town, much like Concord does, start building out its own internet, and that is another avenue for funding. And I'll leave it at that because Tom waved at me.
Thanks, Bob. And Bob, we should give you the same opportunity. If one of the questions that you saw from the community you'd like to respond to, please do.
I haven't seen any of the questions from the community, so
Okay.
I don't have anything that I'm looking at.
Okay. I think, well, I hope Sarah sent those out today. I think she did, but okay. Thank you, Bob.
Everybody got the questions in an email, so I'm sorry if you didn't get that. Finally, Bob.
Our next person is Dapo Olajabu. I'm sorry, I'm probably pronouncing it terribly. So your first job is to tell us how to pronounce it, Dapo, but welcome.
Nancy, I don't think he can because I don't see him in the meeting anywhere.
Oh, really? Okay.
Bob, can I just ask Bob to could we put Robert Jeffries' information up for a minute on the screen? The slide didn't change while Bob was speaking.
So we don't have a slide for Bob, and
okay.
And I did have a conversation with Dapo several days ago, last week probably, about the board and different opportunities available. He was on the call last night, so I'm surprised he's not here tonight.
Does he have any information? Did he have a slide that we could use?
I don't have a slide from him.
He did have information up on the web, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, both Bob and Dapo and Dana all have information on our website, and there's a link directly at the top of our homepage that brings you right to that page.
Okay.
So I guess what we'll have to do is hopefully people will take at least a minute to look on the web and see if they could look at his background if they have not already. He does come strongly recommended. He's one of our strong candidates. So I guess we'll leave it to you to do the research and meanwhile move on to Dana Owens. Dana, are you there?
Good evening. I hope you can hear me okay.
Yes,
Sounds
Dana.
great. Thank you, Dan.
I've now lived in Westford from the town of Harvard since 2001. There I served in Harvard on the Board of Selectmen for 9 years and negotiated the first cable contract while I was there. I also served as the governor's appointee to the redevelopment board for the reuse plan for Devons. And that gave me an insight into what it's like to try to bring very diverse groups together to understand how we can come to some conclusion on making a town a much better town than it originally started out. As a background in my professional area, I am an organizational effectiveness consultant, first working with major firms across the nation with large not-for-profit organizations, then becoming managing director and CEO of a consulting firm with offices in LA, Dallas, and Boston. After performing many consulting assignments, I was given the opportunity to be on the board of directors of Habitat for Humanity of Greater Lowell. So I served for 2 years on that board as it tried to transition from a small, struggling board to an organization that met its goals. 2 years into that assignment, I became the executive director. So I think that brings the unique opportunity of having sat on the board on one side and staff on the other. We grew Habitat from about $100,000 revenue organization to over $800,000 a year within a 4-year period of time. I worked very closely, by the way, with Cindy Edwards at the same time. Cindy worked with me at my consulting firm, so it's a small world. The being on the board of directors and then as executive director for Habitat taught me the unique roles that both the board members and staff members have to walk. And I think that's going to be one of the challenges going forward. It's always a challenge for a volunteer board of directors to understand the importance in staff roles that have to be played. So I look forward to helping if I can, and if the organization feels that I could be a help to them. By the way, last comment as I'd make is I've attended the Harvard University Executive School on Philanthropy and Fundraising, and that was a very unique opportunity to lock up for 2 weeks to really learn the fundraising activities that have to occur for not-for-profits. Thank you.
Thank you. And
Thank
same
you.
opportunity to you if you have the questions from the community. If there's one you feel like you'd like to add to your statement, please do.
I'll just give you a quick one, and that is on the question of the role of a board member. First of all, a board member only serves with any authority when you're in a board setting. When you leave a board meeting, you take your hat off and you just become a volunteer to the organization. The most important thing is understanding that the role of a board is to, using a nautical analogy, set the course and direction that you want to go. Where do you want to get to? Not how you're going to get there, but where do you want to get to? Number two, hire the right captain and leave that captain alone as they take care of their own crew. Board members should not interfere. Third is make sure that that captain has the supplies to get to your destination, i.e. funds, supplies, whatever. And the last thing, bail when asked. So when the captain says help, you get in there and help. So stay to that role and board members will stay clean. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana.
Thank you very much, Dana. Our next person to speak is Susan McNeil-Spooler. Susan, welcome.
There we go. Thank you very much. Hi. I wanted to first of all say I have thousands of feet of 1/4-inch wide latex-free elastic for people if they're making masks, and I know that people cannot find elastic to make them. I have thousands of yards of them here at my house that I'm cutting up. So anyways, and second of all, I think that my photograph here on my presentation says it all. How I feel about WestfordCAT. I love the place. It's one of my happy places. I will first go through and answer the questions that were posed by people in the audience. What's your vision of the WestfordCAT board, and how should it best work with the executive director? My statement is they should communicate honestly with the staff and the community and have a clear vision of the direction that the station is going, its current goals and its future goals. And then in order to build a diverse and collaborative board, what attributes do you bring to the table? I know how to run a meeting using Robert's Rules of Order. I'm excellent at bringing people together who have differing opinions. I'm honest, ethical, and treat people with love, kindness, and compassion, and respect. I lead by example and don't mind getting my hands dirty. I don't suffer fools gladly. I'm direct. In summary, what's the primary activity that will be your initial focus as director? And how will you measure your progress? I want to reassure the staff that their jobs are secure and alleviate the stress that they have been dealing with since December. A party is in order. I will see to it that the organization will run transparently and work collaboratively with the staff to help create and implement fundraising ideas. The fundraising numbers will speak for themselves. We will have benchmarks. And who are my contacts that I'll bring to WestfordCAT? Well, I'm a corporator at Emerson Hospital, which is it's a high-level fundraising type person, and I'll bring my other corporator friends along, as well as the auxiliary members, in which I'm also a member of the Emerson Hospital Auxiliary. What are the main challenges facing the community access television industry over the next 5 years? People are cutting the cord and not subscribing to cable TV, and they're using streaming services like Hulu, Netflix, etc. How will I help CAT to prosper in this environment? I will help to look for grants and find ways to bring in more show producers who will be business contributors and sponsors, in addition to other fundraising initiatives where we will acquire in-kind contributions and activities from our community. I've had my direct TV experience started back in the early 90s. I worked at WMFP. It was on the 54th floor of 1 Beacon Street in Boston. And I was a broadcast technician there for a couple of years. I've had 2 award-winning television shows. One was Susan Science Center and Leominster Cable, where I did live kitchen chemistry experiments, and my cohort was the Gravity Gorilla. And then I had at WestfordCAT, I had an award-winning show with my friend Willie Miranda called, oh, you're waving at me, Out of This World with Susan and Willie. So I think I've pretty much said everything that I can do. And I love to go to WestfordCAT. It's my happy place. And I really appreciate what the crew there can do. And they have a real amazing chemistry. And I'd love to work with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Okay.
Did you have any questions you wanted to answer before we move on? I'll take that as a no.
I think she may have covered them already in her talk. Thanks,
Okay. All right. Our next candidate then is Jack Wang. Jack, you there?
Hi. You phased out for a moment, but since I got unmuted, I'm assuming it's my turn.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jack Wang. First and foremost, thank you so much for setting this up, Tom and the staff, and welcome. And thank you to all the members for giving me this opportunity here. I won't get too much into my background. Everybody can read on the screen, but I do want to point out that I do feel strong about giving back and being involved in the community. I'm a relative newcomer to Westford. My 5-year anniversary in Westford is actually coming up next week, but I'm originally from Chelmsford, so I'm nearby. But if you look at my experience, it's predominantly around sort of business consulting. So I was a commercial banker for many years, and I'm a small business owner now. I'm in financial services. But really my thing is helping organizations grow, whether that's operational processes or marketing or pricing, which really in our context for CAT would be things like fundraising. Really kind of, you can see what my areas of strength are. You know, I'm not going to tell you that I'm the smartest guy or know how to negotiate cable contracts, because I don't. But really, I think the board of the role, several people have talked about, is really provide that guidance and the oversight, goal setting, and strategic directions. And so to that end, probably the most important role of the board is to help and be the biggest cheerleader for WestfordCAT. I will disagree with one of the other candidates. In fact, when you're outside the meeting, I think part of the role of the board is to help identify opportunities, not only for areas for fundraising, but also for volunteers, but also to gauge impact on how far the reach is for CAT and our, people watching the programs, and how can we further penetrate the community and the business community for all of those other reasons. So I really do appreciate it for the time, and I will just kind of wrap up with this. Having served on multiple boards before, and even being chair in past boards, what I would say is that one of the most effective ways for a board to work is to have a good diversity and experience. So I would actually ask the members, when you vote, is that you consider our relative strengths and our areas of focus, because quite frankly, you don't want 6 of the same person, right? 6 people may be highly qualified, but you just don't want 6 of the same person, because it doesn't help. So so if I'm lucky enough to be elected to the board, I would greatly appreciate it. But I do encourage everyone, for the sake of the CAT organization, is you really want to consider what we all bring to the table. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jack.
And Jack, were there any of the questions that you saw that you'd like to add to what you've already said?
So, so I kind of addressed the first one, the role of the board. I will just say on the fourth question, so what contacts do you bring to the organization for fundraising? I think that's largely an overlooked aspect of fundraising, because ultimately, with the level of competition for dollars for nonprofits, it ultimately comes down to who you know. Right? I mean, you have to be able to write the grant and everything like that, but really it comes down to sort of who you know. And so I think it's important for people to recognize that bringing a large network is important. And for myself, I'm very active in the business community, and I was a former banker for many, many years. And so I still have a ton of banker friends. And quite frankly, any nonprofit who wants fundraising wants bankers on the board, because they have money, right? So I think that's important. I think that's an important question for all of the candidates. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. So thank you to all of our candidates who presented their backgrounds. We now have the opportunity to make a motion to change.
Wait a minute, Miss Diane.
Diane, I'm so sorry. Diane, it's your turn. I'm so sorry.
It is. Last but not least.
Trust me, this is my first time going through this, and I'm trying to get everything right and making sure we do everything. And, you got to speak, and I can't wait to hear it. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you again for everybody contributing to this event tonight. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Diane Wood. My husband and I have lived in town for over 35 years, raising a family and being active community members. Over those years, I've logged multiple years of town volunteer and nonprofit hours, working on or leading projects across Road and Bush Community Center, the League of Women Voters, where I was a steering committee member, town efforts such as last year's use of remote devices for elections, our recent bylaw changes to include gender neutral language, am an election worker, Crosstown Connect representative, and others. Each one of these efforts expanded my diverse and eclectic network and provided me a window into the community. My experience with WestfordCAT stems from the League of Women Voters being a partner, holding events there, and for the past 3 months representing a part of the community that was disappointed in the existing board's actions. I've learned a lot and have a lot more to learn. I'm committed to retaining professional news and community programming services, and despite the financial challenges before us, feel there is indeed an opportunity to raise the bar, and with the renewed interest in and the recognition of the value of WestfordCAT. I'm results-oriented, and both my professional and community roles make great use of my process and program management background and skills. I'll address a couple of the questions here that we've gone over a couple of times. So the first one about what the vision is of the relationship between the board and the executive director. So the role, as we all know, the role of the board is to provide fiscal and operational oversight without getting involved in the direct day-to-day operations. For the ED, we would set measurable goals, play the role of an overseer, collaborate on a vision, provide any needed support, and let the executive director manage the day-to-day operations. For the staff, I expect that role to be staying engaged, but management of that staff and any messaging should come directly from the executive director. From the community, communications is key, and as someone else noted, being visible and a strong advocate and spokesperson in the community is critical. The fifth question I'll jump to, what are the main challenges facing the community access television industry? So identifying sustainable revenue streams, which we've spoken about over and over, monetizing services as well as fundraising, and see what other opportunities are out there. I'd reach out to other successful CATs. I'd stay close in touch with our lobby legislature to support PEG, PEG legislation. I'd consider consulting, a consulting company to evaluate and assess our strengths and weaknesses. I'd re-energize the community, and more importantly, staying relevant so the community embraces us all. And I think that's it.
Thanks,
Thank
Diane.
you so much. And thank you again for your diplomacy.
I know Dapo is trying to get into the meeting. Does it show that he's signed on?
Mike, maybe you can help us with that.
No, he is not.
Okay, I think he's trying to get on. He just sent me an email. Hold on a minute. Okay, I wonder if he, Mike, is there a way to send him a link again, or are we too far into the process right now?
Well, if he's registered,
He did register.
then I can.
As far as I know, he registered.
Sure.
Why don't we spend another minute trying to solve this, and I can explain a few things just about the next decision we'll make. So now that we know who all the candidates are, and Dapo will remain a candidate whether we're able to hear from him or not, the next decision for us will be in the annual meeting. We have the ability as the membership to decide if we want the elected board positions to remain at 6, or we could potentially remove it to 5 or move it up to 7 or 8. And so in just a moment, we'll open the floor to see if anyone would like to make a motion. And the motion you would make would be to increase the number of elected board members or decrease, I suppose, to X. So you might propose to increase it to 7 or to 8. If there's a second, then we'll have a discussion period. And people will have a chance to make arguments both for and against that motion. We'll try to listen to the information that we can in this format until we feel like we've heard all the key points, and then we would call for a vote. Are there any questions or anything, Mike, you see we should be addressing? Because we could potentially vote on this, and then if Dapo is able to join, we could potentially go back and hear from him before the final candidate vote.
I guess we can do it in whatever order you like. I mean, if you want me to bring that motion out now, the motion as I've currently phrased it just says expand the number of elected. Hang on, let me just read it. Expand the number of elected board seats. It doesn't specify to what number.
Right. So I think we would need a motion from a member, Mike, and then we might have to, on the fly, tweak that poll to the specific number that's in the motion.
Well, there is a question already that's been put.
Okay.
We have 2. The first one was from Chris Kuntz, who said, "I move to keep the number of board members at 6." And then we have another one from Patty Stocker after that saying, "I make a motion to expand the number of board seats." How would you like to deal with that?
Which one's first?
The motion to keep the number of board members at 6.
Okay, so I think we would recognize that motion first and then see if there's a second.
I second.
Yeah, James Gozzo has seconded that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So now we'll move into discussion, and the motion is to maintain the number of elected board positions at 6 at the current level. And so now we'll open the floor through whatever means you think is best, Mike, to people who have points either pro or con.
Well, if they put, you can put their hands up. Chris Kuntz has his hand up. I guess it's his motion. He should speak first. So.
Chris, yes, it's her motion. Yep. Chris, would you like to speak?
I think it would be, given that there are all new people running who have not had position on the board before, and given that this is a whole new experience, I know there are a lot of volunteers and more people running than we can have. I'd love to have those people, work on committees and things like that. But I think in order to have an effective board, you need to keep the number fairly small now. We know there's going to be a new person also with the Nashoba tech, probably appointed later. And just having, if you expand the group too much now, I've been in board meetings where we've got like 11, 12, 13, 14, and it's very difficult to maintain, get consensus for motions and things like that. And everybody I'm so pleased to see the divergence of skills and the wonderful experience people bring. But I think keeping the number small to start, it can always be changed later. But I think it's really helpful with, a new board starting. Everybody's new, keeping it at a controllable number, because you still have the appointees to add to the board. So there will be, minimum of 9 people on the board if we keep the current voting at 6.
Thank you, Chris. And just to reinforce Chris's point, in addition to the 6 elected board members, there are 3 appointed board members from the select board, the school committee, and Nashoba Tech. So thank you, Chris, for making that point. If it's possible, I'd like to hear from someone who might be on the con side of this question, maybe the person who made the motion to expand the board.
Thanks.
Ray, I've unmuted you.
Okay, I'm not on the other side. Can I get to speak now, Tom, or?
Well, there
Sure. Once you go ahead, but the next person I'd like to hear would be someone who is on the con side, just so we can.
Okay. I'm looking for people to put their hands up if they want to speak.
Okay. I strongly agree with Chris. I believe that the current structure of 6 elected directors and 3 appointed directors, that takes it to 9. I think that's a workable number. I've been on boards myself also, and I think, in my opinion, that you get more than 9, it becomes unwieldy. As Chris pointed out, we've got all brand new members. I think sticking with 6 members with diverse backgrounds makes it more effective and more productive, potentially more productive. I vote that we stick with 6.
Okay, thanks, Ray.
Okay, Diane Wood also has her hand up. Diane?
Yes, thank you. I guess I'm another agreeer for practicality reasons, in that just thinking about a total of 11-member board for practical purposes of just scheduling meetings, making decisions, efficiency, and I'm not sure what value add it does just for the sake of expanding it because it seems like a good idea. I'd like to hear that if people do want to expand it, why, as Tom, you said, why would people, what makes sense, and why is there a reason for expanding it? For, if it doesn't help with efficiency, if it doesn't help with decision making, I think everything the last several people have mentioned.
Okay, thanks, Dan. If we could hear any kind of new positions.
Yeah, so Patty Stocker, who was one of the people who wanted to expand the board, has her hand up, so I'll unmute her next. Could I ask people, if your question has been answered, to put your hand down so I can tell who the new people are? Thank you. Patty.
Thanks, Patty.
Hi. So I think that the difference between 9 and 11 is pretty much, that it's not much of a big difference. So the people that are wanting to run or be on this board, to me, are pretty amazing people, all of them. I think that their backgrounds are diverse and that they have a lot of, there's a lot of different ideas and expertise that they can bring. I think the fact that we had a small board was one of the problems as to what happened to us. There was, you know, people that were sort of siding with each other and people that were friends or knew each other. Or I just think that the difference between 9 and 11 is not much of a big difference. And I think every single one of these people that want to be on the board have something to bring to the table. And I am so impressed. And I want to thank all of you for the presentations that you gave and for the support that you're giving to WestfordCAT. And I really think that 9 and 11 is not a big difference. I think we need all of you to support us. You all have something to bring to the table. And I really implore the members to say, yes, let's expand it. Let's expand it. Let's bring all of them on.
Other new positions that have a new argument to make or would like to reinforce, I guess, the con side, just to give us some balance.
We have a request from Ray to speak. If I can unmute him.
Ray already did speak, but Ray.
Oh, he did? Okay, fine. Ray came on the question. So we also have Nina who wants to speak.
Okay,
Nina.
Hi Nina.
Hi, I support Patty because from my experience, people who come like liaisons from schools, they're not much of a help. Really, they just for numbers. At least we will have good people, I don't know. Otherwise, you may not count them. That's why it makes sense to have 8.
Okay, thanks, Nina. Oh, I'm sorry, were you through?
Sorry.
So I have
the numbers.
I just want to have a comment that, you know, I don't feel strongly one way or the other how the vote goes, whether we have the number on the board or not, the increase on the board. But what I do want to stress is that if we stay in with only, you know, the 6 and we have 2 or 3 other people that really want to be involved, we have an active task force that, you know, should be an adjunct to the board. And, you know, that just exponentially grows the expertise that comes to the organization and also becomes sort of a farm team for the board, you know. So, you know, you've got folks that are really learning about the fundraising and about the operations and really engaged in bringing their skills to the table, you know, and then supporting the board and the staff as well. So I think the task force is playing a really important role right now. And if folks don't get elected to the board, I do sincerely hope that they come on to the task force, that it's not a dismissal. It's really another opportunity to get involved and stay involved and show you know, a broader support. So I would just put that out there.
Okay, good. Thanks, Sarah. I think we've probably heard the key arguments here, but why don't we let one more person speak, Mike, if there's one more in the queue?
Well, I think Paul Fassbender's put his hand up. There are several hands still up from people we've heard from already. Can I ask you please to put your hand down if you've spoken and don't have anything further to say? Okay. Paul, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, I've been on the boards of several 501c3 organizations. I'm currently on 2. Most of them have 9 members or less. It works very well. I want to really reinforce that some of the messages that some of the candidates made about the board of directors being directors is a key point. If they keep focusing on strategy, and if the real work is done by the staff and by committees, you don't need a whole bunch of people on the board. It's much easier then for the board to provide an oversight role, have the creativity come from the committees, and be presented to the board. The board itself can't possibly do everything that needs to be done in this situation. And their strength can be creating more committees to focus on things like fundraising, on fighting legislation battles and things like that, each of which has unique skills. I'll also say that Robert's Rules does permit boards to create ex officio positions. So the chairman of key committees could possibly be extended board members, either with or without votes. But we shouldn't be making decisions like this tonight on the fly. That's something the board and the task force should be thinking about and make a real considered decision about and bring it back to the membership at the future, hopefully with a totally new set of bylaws. Because the current bylaws, as I think we've pointed out over the last few months, need to be rewritten. So I would propose keeping it the way it is for tonight.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So I think the next thing we'll do, Mike, is Chris's motion is to maintain the number of elected board positions at the current level of 6. If you have a poll question that we can use to call the vote.
I do. Now, do you want me to just launch it, or do you want to talk about it anymore before we launch the poll?
Well, that was the discussion period, and we called for the last speaker.
Yeah, okay, I meant to make the polling first.
If you would like to explain any mechanics, though, of how this works, that could be time well spent.
So I'm going to launch the poll in a minute, at which point it will appear on everybody's screen. You can get to choose one of the options that's shown to you. And as you make your votes, I will see the totals totting up, the percentages totting up. After everyone seems to have voted and there's no further movement, I'll close the poll and then I will publish it, which means you will get to see it on the screen. You'll get to see the results on the screen. So I'm going to launch the poll now.
And Mike, once you've seen what looks to you like a slowdown, meaning that most people have voted, that's how you'll decide when to close the poll?
Well, just less than 80%. Just less than 80% of people have voted so far. So there's still a few out.
Okay.
But it's not going to make a difference to the result. I can tell you that. I don't want to be
secret, Mike.
Keep you in suspense. Is that vote tampering? I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think we should. While people are still having the opportunity to vote, we shouldn't give them a signal of what's going on. Mike, since you're the one that can see that, I'll have to give you the call on when you feel like we can close the poll.
It's pretty much stopped now. So I'm gonna close. Oh, just got another one. Okay, I'm gonna close it there. And I'm going to share that. Okay.
So the motion to maintain the current number of elected board members at 6 carries. So there will be 6 elected board positions available for the 8 candidates that we have. Nancy, unless you have any comments, or Mike, you have any comments, I think from here we proceed to the vote. There's a little bit of explaining to do about how the actual vote happens, but let me check in with you, Nancy, and with you, Mike. Anything we need to be thinking about or doing before we move to the vote?
Vote for a candidate.
Yeah, the next thing I think is, since we know who the candidates are, we've heard from them and we know, well, let me ask, is Dapo now available? Because we could take the opportunity now to hear from Dapo if he's been able to join.
Dapo didn't register, so he doesn't, I can't resend a link to him because he doesn't have a link.
Okay. Okay, so unfortunately we'll have to rely on the information that was posted on the website.
So we've got, so one point to make, I'm sorry to crash into you there, Tom, but someone's asked the question, can we make it clear about the 2-year and 1-year terms? Do we need to talk about that first?
Yeah, let's do that. So in the bylaws, there's in my opinion, a well-considered decision to have the board positions be staggered, which means that they're 2-year terms. It would mean half the elected positions, in this case, 3 of the 6 would basically be up for renewal or re-election each year. So 3 would carry over, 3 would be up for election. It's pretty explicit in the bylaws that it should be done that way since, I think, 2006 when that version of the bylaws were enacted. So our read and our plan for tonight is that we would go ahead and vote to see who the 6 top vote getters of the 8 are, and Mike would explain how that will work, and that the 3 top vote getters would be elected to 2-year terms, and then the next 3 vote getters would be elected to 1-year terms. That would give us the advantage, I think, of having everyone weigh in. It would reflect everyone's sort of relative view of all the candidates, and it would be a little bit procedurally simpler. So that's our intended course for tonight. And we can leave a second or two for questions, a little bit longer than that for
Yeah, so
questions.
there are a couple of people with hands up here. Barbara Upperman, you were first.
Hi, Barbara.
Huh?
Barbara, you had your hand up.
Barbara,
Did you
do
have a question?
I'm
Oh, no.
sorry. I hit that by mistake. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Barbara. We're glad you're here.
Okay, so Chris has a question for us. Chris?
Hi, I do, I have a question for Nancy, Chair of the meeting. If we are voting, we have 8 candidates and we are voting for 6.
Yes.
Then the 2 who didn't make it in the vote of 6, then we will divide them into the 2 groups, because you wouldn't want to do it just based on the if you've got people voting on 8 people, and then they recognize at the end when 2 are left out, then they might throw their votes differently to people they'd want to run for 1 year or 2 years. So I'm confused about how you're doing this.
I'll give it a shot of explaining that, and perhaps my colleagues here can help. We are going to vote for the 6. Everybody votes for 6 candidates. Yes. And the ones that don't get the votes are no longer candidates, and that chooses your 6. And then we'll decide which ones are 2-year versus 1 year.
I think that's
So
Krista's proposal.
2 separate groups of decisions.
That's Krista's proposal, and we can do it that way. And I think it doesn't add a lot of complexity. So if that's your preference, Nancy, as chair, why don't we do that? Mike, I know it's a little bit different for you, but just to be clear, what we're saying is people would first vote for the 6 of the 8 that they would like to elect to the board. We don't have a way to know if someone or prevent someone from voting for 7 or for 5. Similar to if you were in the room raising your hand saying aye, there may not be a mechanism for that, but I think we'll see who has the greatest support. So we can then, in a second round of voting, have people vote for the 3 people of the remaining 6 that they would like to serve 2-year terms. We can do that.
Remaining 5. There will be 5 people left after we take 3 out.
I'm sorry, there'll be 6 elected board members. So there'll be the top 6 vote getters from the first round would move on to the second round to be selected as either 2-year or 1-year.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so we vote again on to split the 6 into 2.
Right, that would be the second vote. So the first vote would be, we'd show, I think you're planning to show 2 panels of 4, and people will need to pick the 6 from amongst those first 4, second 4, total 8. Maybe Mike, you can explain that. After that, we'll know who the board members are. And then in a second vote, we can determine 2 or 1-year terms.
So do you need a motion to reestablish the staggered terms, or is that we're just going to put that straight to the vote?
I think we can put it straight to the vote as we've just discussed.
Okay, so
it's called in the bylaws that it needs to be this way. So I think we can go to the vote.
Okay, hang on. There's a couple of people put their hands up here. Do we want to take those questions or?
Sure.
Okay, so start in no particular order. Patty Stocker, you have your hand up.
So how many are up for 3? How many are up for 2-year terms, and how many are up for the remaining 1?
The staggered
3 2-year terms and 3 1-year terms for 6.
So couldn't we just take the people that got the most votes, the 3 people that got the most votes, and just have them go for 2, and the people that got,
we could, Patty.
Wouldn't that make sense?
I think it can work either way, and I think the preference of the chair is to do it in 2 steps. So I think that's.
Yeah, I'm not questioning you, Nancy. I was just trying to think of expediency here.
Right.
Yeah, I think it won't take too long to do the vote, so we could easily spend more time talking about it now than it will take to actually do the 2 votes.
Okay.
I have to change the wording on the vote because that's not how it's phrased right now.
It's like painting a wall. All the time goes into the setup. Actually, putting on the paint is quick.
All that blue tape.
Frog tape, right?
So I've got a vote here that just says to re-establish staggered terms on the board by electing 3 candidates to a 2-year term and 3 to a 1-year term. No discussion about the process involved in that, but just the principle of doing that.
I don't think we need that vote, Mike. I think we can go ahead and
Okay.
vote for, of the 8, who are the 6
Okay, you want to go right to that? Okay.
elected to a board position, yes. Because the
Okay,
bylaws call out the staggered term, so we don't have the ability to really decide that right now.
Okay, so
There could be a bylaw redrafting committee that could change it, but what's on the table right now is, first, who are the 6 of the 8 that will be elected to the board? And then
okay.
we'll address the second part in a second.
So the first poll is going to be the first 4 names. As I said, these names were pulled out at random, no particular grouping for them. You can vote for as many of these as you want or not. There will be 4 more candidates on the next poll that you can vote for. And we encourage you to vote for 6. Okay, I'm going to launch the first poll now.
Mike, that's very helpful that you have all the candidates listed there. So just to remind everyone who all the candidates are, you'll first be able to select your choices from this first group of 4 and then the second group of 4 in just a second.
Dana, Jack, Robert Jeffries. Who are you voting for?
Mute.
I
People
think
need
someone
to
maybe wants to
don't
be on.
talk about your vote.
I think someone maybe wants to be on mute that's not.
There you go. Sorry, that was my fault.
No
Too
problem.
many things going on. Okay, I think that, oh no, still getting votes. Let's keep it running.
So in this case, Mike, we'd want to show the results from both of these after they're both done.
Ooh, can you do that? I'm not sure you can do that.
Yeah.
So do you not want me to show the first lot of results?
Can you record what they are some other way? Take a picture with your phone? Or...
I'm gonna making a note of them because I have to remember them for later on.
Yes, but I'm in the
Okay,
middle.
I think we're pretty much there. So I'm going to close that poll.
Okay.
And make a note of the results here. Okay, and then now I'm going to launch the second poll, which is the next 4 names.
Excellent. And Mike, when the time's right, I don't think you need to share the percentages here either. I think you could just share with us who the top 6 vote getters are.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, that looks to be just about voted out. So I'm going to close that one and put those results in my little calculator here.
I think we need some suspense music.
Yeah, roll the drums. Okay, so then in order of the top 3, we do in fact have a tie, but fortunately it doesn't matter. So the first ranked vote was for Jack Wang. Second, both Marilyn Cattler and Christy Bates, same scores. Fourth was Diane Wood. Fifth was Bob Jeffries. And 6th was Susan Spooler.
Well, good. Thank you. And congratulations to the new members of the WestfordCAT board. That's
Welcome.
wonderful. So
And
do you want me to?
And
do you want me to
Dana
try?
and Goppo, please join us on the task force.
yes, you'll be most welcome. There's a lot of good work to do there. Now, Mike, you may have a little preparation to do. The next, I believe the next is do 2 panels of 3 this time, listing all 6 of the newly elected board members. And we're going to ask people to vote for the 3 that they would like to have a 2-year term.
Okay, hang on a
That'll
second.
take a second to set up, I know.
Yep, talk amongst yourselves.
It's all in the setup.
I was excited to talk to our kids about how 50 years ago tomorrow was the splashdown of the Apollo 13 mission, which was one of the great sort of adventures of human ingenuity. I always think of that story and find it inspiring that we can face a very difficult, very, very challenging situation and work through it together. So.
Yeah. The silver lining of so much of what we're going through is when we're put to the test, it's wonderful to see people rise to the occasion and really help each other out. Like Mr. Rogers once said, look for the helpers. And there's
I'm so excited that, we've been able to pull this annual meeting together virtually and to do a voting and have this whole process be kind of the trial run for the town and for other organizations. I know that there are some other outside organizations that were watching us to see how this is done. So it's very exciting that we managed to pull this together and make it work. So thank you both for all your time and effort. Thank you to Mike and Bob for pulling this together. It's been great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to launch the poll for the first 3 names. And meanwhile, I'll be typing the second one.
So we're going to ask you, out of these 2 flights of candidates, these 2 groups of 3, who are the 3 you would like to be elected to 2-year terms? And the top 3 vote getters will get the 2-year terms, and we'll be very grateful and welcome the other 3 for 1-year terms. So we'll maintain the staggered schedule. I did get a question from via text about whether my kids actually wanted to hear anything about my story about Apollo 13, and the answer is no. Thanks for asking.
Hold on.
I do want to thank Nancy too for her excellent work. Nancy's a key part of the town's COVID response effort, and so I'm grateful she's been able to carve out time to stay on top of this also important issue over the past couple of weeks.
Are we supposed to be able to choose more than one on this?
Oh, so, I'm sorry. You're right. I didn't check the right box for that. I'm going to have to redo it. Hold on.
Thanks for your patience, everyone, as we navigate this new land.
It will be really interesting to see too if the number of votes, number 1, 2, and 3, coincide with the 2-year term versus 1-year term.
I'm going to close that poll and I'm going to discard it, and we'll do it again. Hold on a second.
No problem.
Geez, Nance, you're tracking for a half an hour earlier than your plan.
Oh, is that right?
I think she was targeting doing it by 8.
She's
Maybe a half hour later.
9 o'clock in the beginning.
Okay, I think.
Pretty good for your first board leadership, right? The annual meeting leadership. Is this the first time?
This is the first time. I'm trying to pretend it's not terrifying, but it's completely different to do something like this. I mean, talking into a computer screen and know that there's 44 people watching you. I shouldn't have scratched my head just now. There may be people watching television. Woo!
Well, it's fun. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I hope everybody is healthy and doing as well as possible.
So we're going to do part 2 first. Here's part 2.
No problem. So between this and the next one, you're selecting 3 that are your choice to receive a 2-year term.
And tell me that you can tick more than 1 on that one.
Yeah, it says all that apply.
Good.
Thanks everyone for sticking around. I see the attendee numbers stayed almost the same since we started, so we're grateful that you're able to give us your time.
This really is a remarkable turnout for something like this.
Okay, that seems to have.
I'm only slightly insulted that I'm going to get better turnout online than I am when I have one for real with food and drink.
So I'm going to close that poll now because that seems to have stabilized. And I'm just going to make a note of those numbers.
There, I think for most people, this probably is a meeting that has food and wine.
Yeah, well, that's probably true.
We have to, we're driving, so we have to stay clean for now.
Yeah.
Okay, so here comes related part 1.
Following learning who our 2-year board members will be and our 1-year board member, we'll have a short moment for any other business, and then we'll move to adjourn.
Yeah, and this doesn't mean they're discarded after a year. It just means they're up for re-election, right?
That's exactly right. They'll serve a year, and then they'll have the option at the end of that year to run for re-election or pursue their passions other ways. But yep, it doesn't block anything. It just means they come up for re-election sooner.
Still got a few more to come, I think. We have slightly fewer people voting in the second round, so come on.
I've gotten a number of texts, sort of in an informal survey. It seems that more than half the attendees are in fact drinking wine. Letting you know.
Maybe we should have set a deadline for unmuting people, no more than an hour. Okay, that seems to have stabilized now, so I'm going to close that part of the poll. And let me just put these numbers in the spreadsheet.
I'd be curious to know how many of these people who are not presenting get to watch in their jammies. Who's watching in their bunny slippers? Come on, guys.
Are we talking daytime pajamas or nighttime pajamas?
That's right. We're all at home isolating anyway.
Yeah, when you're working from home, what's the difference?
And when you're wearing a mask, it's amazing how much money you save in lipstick.
Okay, so I believe the 3 people elected to a 2-year term are Jack Wang, Christy Bates, and Diane Wood.
Oh, so it was different.
There
That
we
was
go.
worth doing.
Thank you very much. We're very grateful for joining. It's been an amazing panel of talent. With that, with your permission, Nancy, we can briefly open to see if there's any other business before the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
This would be people who want to raise questions or raise their hand. We'll give it maybe a minute for that. Mike, I don't know if you can see if anyone is.
Yeah, there's a few people with hands up, so I'll work my way through them. So Marilyn just put, oh, let's start at the top there. I think Barry has had his hand up for a while, so hold on. Barry?
Okay, I wanted to thank the 3 of you.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Barry.
You're welcome.
Oh, and then who else we got here? Christy Bates. Oh, you're self-muted, Christy. There we go.
Hi, thanks, Mike. I just unmuted. First of all, thank you very much. I think this meeting ran very smoothly. And my husband, another member, is sitting in the room with me and agrees.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, there you go. But I do have a question. Well, first of all, thank you. I'm looking forward to serving on the board. And my question is, when can we have our first meeting? I'm concerned about the fact that we have the termination of the MOU that has to be dealt with. And I'm just wondering if we can if it's appropriate for us to set a meeting date tonight.
It's absolutely appropriate. You are now the board, the 6 of you, and the Sean Kelly remains on the board for now. until the school committee, and I'll remain on the board until the select board basically have elections, and then all the liaison positions change. So absolutely. And Christy, if you want to try to suggest a date for a consensus amongst the existing board, that'd be great.
Is this just a poll of the board members at this point?
Yeah, I would suggest that Christy, if you could take that up offline, if that sounds right to you, an email out to the now current board.
Sure, I can do that.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
Christy, by all means, Tracy and I would be delighted to be at that first meeting or two if you would like us for the transition.
I'm sure that would be awesome. Thank you, Nancy.
It's a very generous offer. Having served with both, they both have a lot of knowledge about the continuity and the operation and the personalities. So that's a real gift they're offering to you.
Okay, so next I'm going to do Ray. Ray?
Missed it. No,
No questions?
no, I'm good. Thank you, everybody, for the great meeting.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so going back up the list, got Jack Wang. Jack, you're self-muted.
Oh, first things first, I want to say thank you, Nancy, thank you, Tom, thank you, Mike, and to all of the members who participate tonight. And I sincerely appreciate the support. I'm just looking forward to getting to work. And let's let this thing go. Let's get this thing going. Thank you.
That's
Thank
great.
you.
Congratulations, Jack.
May I ask,
Okay.
is Lauren still on the call? Can we explicitly invite her if she'd like to say a few comments? Because she really never had a chance at the end of her tenure to say anything.
Who,
Lauren,
sorry?
Can
I don't-
is she allowed to speak?
Is she on the call?
No.
I don't
Yeah.
think she's.
So for the non-members, the only way we could make it work for the technology in the end was that they could listen in and text or email questions into Sarah if they had them. So Lauren is out there, so we can say hello. But
We still have quite a few people with their hands up. Can you
okay, let's
just
go.
check if you mean to do that or not? But otherwise, I'll start unmuting people. Diane, your hand is up.
Yes, and again, as we've all said, thank you so much to everybody. And I have to admit, I think most of us were fairly surprised that this went as smoothly, and it's all to your efforts between Sarah and Nancy, Tom and Mike, knowing that we're the first organization to even do a virtual annual meeting in itself is a tribute. So thank you. And then the comment that Christy made, Tom, was obviously about the sense of urgency relating to meet to rescind the letter of termination for the MOU. And since the select board meeting is next Tuesday, I think that's what's on some of our minds right now.
So I will move to rescind the termination letter at our meeting on Tuesday. So I don't think any further action is needed from this body, but I think having a meeting, between now and Saturday is probably a great idea anyway, just because there's some urgent issues that would make sense to get the board up to speed on.
Right, thank you. And that was the sense of urgency for the Tuesday night, whether or not the new board would have to do anything. So that was the question there, but thank you.
So, Harjo, want to speak? Harjo Kester?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can. Hi, Hayo.
I don't want to repeat what everybody's been saying, but as an individual who served on the cable committee when it first came to town and Neshoba Cable was implementing it, that was before Comcast, I'm just absolutely blown away how well you people have conducted the cable staff, the WestfordCAT staff. They must, tremendous job they've been doing to this virus, doing a tremendous service to the town. So CAT is so right now, especially so valuable. And I thank everyone. The second thing I really am pleased about is the quality and the backgrounds of all the folks who volunteered to be on this board. It is exemplary. It's fantastic. It's a great statement for the town of Westford. So thank you all.
Thank you, Hayo. Just a quick correction. One of my colleagues on the select board who's listening in reminds me that we don't have a meeting on Tuesday, but I assure you that we'll do whatever the procedural method needs to be to rescind the letter. So I believe the select board considers all their concerns addressed through this meeting tonight.
Okay, I'm just looking to see who's had their hand up the longest. Ray, your hand has been up for a long time. I'm sorry. Did you still have a question, Ray Mascola?
No, I don't. Sorry.
That's
I
no
have a
problem.
little problem with that. Okay,
Hey.
sorry.
Okay, and then in that case, it's Chris Kuntz.
Yes, congratulations to the new board. I think this is wonderful and looking forward to starting this new year. One thing I'd request, I know the new board wants to meet fairly soon and probably maybe have meetings fairly frequently, but would you, in the effort of transparency, send a notice to the members as to when the different board meetings will be and let us know if members are invited. I know we don't vote, but if we're invited at least to watch or participate or volunteer. And also, if possible, it would be wonderful to have an agenda or at least some main topics, because some people may have, questions or expertise in certain areas. And when a particular issue comes up, if they know ahead, it's going to be discussed at this board meeting, they can either, send information in advance or come to the meeting or whatever. I think that would be great.
Thanks, Chris. I think that's a great suggestion. And I know many of the candidates have mentioned to me sort of their desire to make sure there's a lot more transparency. So.
Okay, we've got two left. Patty Stocker.
Hey, Patty.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of you that were volunteering to be on the board. We appreciate your support, and I'm really so proud of the WestfordCAT staff for how we have maintained our professionalism in a time when we have a board that's falling apart or had a board that was falling apart, and we had no executive director. So thank you so much for every single one of you for stepping up and wanting to be a part of the board of directors.
Thanks, Patty.
And finally, Christy Bates has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I never put it down.
Okay.
I guess we could consider all the questions having been answered, and we can end on a lighter.
There's one question which is not actually pertinent to the meeting, but it might be worth asking since we were talking about fundraising. Somebody wants to know how they're supposed to pay their dues.
I think that's a Sarah question.
Well, they can go on our website and pay by the PayPal link on the membership page. You can send a check. And if you call me tomorrow at the office, I'll be happy to help with that.
Thank you,
Great.
Sarah.
Well,
Okay.
Madam Chair, are you open to a motion to adjourn, or do you have any parting words for us?
I can put that up on the screen. Motion to adjourn. Do you want me to do it?
Nancy, ready for that motion? All right, I'm gonna make the motion to adjourn, and Nancy, I think we need your second, and then we'll put up the vote.
Second it.
Okay, seconded. Somebody beat me to it. That's fine. All those in favor of adjourning?
Thank you, everyone, for your patience and understanding as we moved into this new land of online voting.
Nice job. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you. Well, you won't be surprised to know.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome. Thank you, Bob.